Hello and welcome to another video which proves the Earth is not flat. Now, the hypothesis that the Earth is a flat and level plane is a perfectly valid hypothesis, and that does not make it true. Any hypothesis must be tested by observation and/or experiment to establish whether or not it is true. The observations presented in this video establish that the hypothesis that the Earth is a flat and level plane is not true, unless or until someone can provide an explanation for how these observations could be possible on a flat Earth. As always, I'm happy to discuss any reasonable explanations or objections to the stills and video that I'm presenting here. So a few days ago I visited the fishing town of Anstruther, also known locally as Anstruther, on the Fife coast. And the primary purpose of my trip was to try to film the sun setting. Now, Scottish weather is notoriously variable, and although there had been a lot of bright sunshine and clear skies during the day, there were some showers that were blowing in from the east, and unfortunately the film that I got that you're looking at now of the sun setting, it was setting largely behind some cloud, and there was also some snow or sleet falling from that cloud at the time. However, I still managed to get a shot of the outline of the sun as it comes down and hits the horizon and starts to go below the horizon, albeit you can see some precipitation in the picture and some cloud in the picture, as well as numerous seabirds flying past. However, this, although it might form the subject of a future video, is not the subject of today's video. Today's video concerns something that I didn't notice really until I had got the video back home and put it onto the computer, and I noticed some wind turbines that featured at the introduction of this video and in the short teaser video that I presented. Now, as I said in the teaser video, I am no stranger to presenting wind turbine videos. I've done 2 or 3 of them in the past. Wind turbines, particularly offshore wind turbines, have provided quite a number of demonstrations that the Earth cannot be flat, including one that I made on the west coast of the UK, looking out towards the Irish Sea. However, today's video is rather an interesting one, I think, and the observation of the wind turbines that you'll see in a moment is, well, it's utterly devastating for the flat Earth. So you can see here the sun setting, and there's an interesting question about that sunset and the horizon we can see in the image here. And as I say, I'll leave that for another video, and let's have a look at the wind turbines for today's video. So the main subject of this video is some wind turbines, and as we zoom the camera back out and then pan across to the left from the setting sun here, we'll see some wind turbines just poking up above the horizon, and that lets you see part of the harbour wall at Anstruther. So as I just get the exposure sort it out a little bit here, and then zoom in. The wind turbines and some land come into view. That land is the top of a hill. It's actually near to where the wind turbines are located. I won't discuss that particular bit of land in this video, but if you want me to, I can talk about it another time. So here are the wind turbines, and I hadn't really appreciated the significance of them until I got the video back home, so I didn't really spend much time filming them. As I say, I was in Anstruther in Scotland, so let's have a little look on Google Earth just to see exactly where I was located. So here is Scotland on Google Earth, and the part of Scotland where I live is called Fife, and it's this portion of Scotland here. And the day of filming I was in the town of Anstruther, which appears here. I'll just go over a bit. So there's lots of fishing villages along the Fife coast down here, and quite a pretty part of the world. And I was located on the harbour wall here. Now I would have gone right to the end. On the day in question there was quite a strong easterly wind blowing, and from this point onwards there is a high wall that kind of protects the walkway. But this end part here with the beacon at the harbour entrance has no protection. The waves were breaking over here, so I positioned my camera here just where that shadow is. The line of sight out to the turbines, to the first of the turbines, is indicated by this yellow line here. So we're looking in a southwesterly direction. It's January, or it was January when I did this video, so did this filming, so the sun sets in the southwest rather than directly west. And if we zoom out, we can confirm that we have indeed identified a wind turbine, and you can check whether I've identified the correct wind turbine at your leisure if you wish to do so. I'll explain exactly why I think, or why I'm pretty sure I've got the right turbines a little bit later in this video. So the line of sight over the water is completely clear of land until the island of Inchkeith here, which doesn't appear in my videos, so we need not only to consider the turbines but also why the island of Inchkeith doesn't appear in the video. And then from this point here just to the west of Edinburgh onwards, we really ought to be seeing the land above the horizon if the earth was flat. The wind turbines appear in shot are actually located here on this hill fairly close to Shotts, Hart Hill, and that sort of area. So if you know Scotland at all, you'll know that there's a prison at Shotts, and the M8 motorway runs nearby there. However, zooming in on our wind turbine farm just to confirm that there really are wind turbines here, and there you see wind turbines and their shadows on the ground. So the first turbine we should be able to see is this one. There are no wind turbines further to the north, so at any point along near that yellow line, and there are ones further west, there are ones further east, and some to the south. The correct ones that we're seeing in the video are these here, and I've actually put a line into each one. I've measured the distance to each one, and I have confirmed that with fairly standard kind of atmospheric refraction, we certainly ought to be able to see the tops of these wind turbines on a spherical Earth. I'll take those off just now, and if we just put in this one for turbine, what I've called turbine 11, that's this one here, we can follow this back towards Inchkeith. Apologies for clicking the mouse, it's probably quite irritating, but my computer's going very slowly because I've got too many other things going on in the background at the moment. Here we are, here's Inchkeith, and we'll come back to this a little bit later, but the island of Inchkeith has a lighthouse tower, which you can see here, and that lighthouse is key to identifying and confirming that I have in fact identified the correct wind turbines. So here is a still image from the video you saw earlier showing the wind turbines. I can talk about this piece of land here in just a moment. These wind turbines are, I'm certain, the ones that I have identified on Google Earth. One additional piece of information is that this structure being pointed out just now on the screen is, I think, Inchkeith Island Lighthouse. The top of the lighthouse tower, the highest point that protrudes above the rest of the buildings and the island itself. It's in exactly the right location relative to the turbines for it to be Inchkeith Lighthouse Tower, and we would expect to see only the tip of the lighthouse tower in this particular image if the Earth was indeed spherical. So what I've done here is go back to Google Earth. I've overlaid the image of a crop from the left hand side of the photograph, which has the purported lighthouse tower here on the right hand side. And as you can see, I've also coloured the lines of sight to the wind turbines in yellow and one in red to make them a little bit easier to see. So the first tower here, which was at the highest, one of the highest points on the hill, quite tall appearing, is the line in the bottom right corner here. And then we have some distance away the next turbine, and then about twice as far away we come to two turbines that are, the line of sight is to the towers is almost directly next to each other, and so there's a yellow and a red line that go to those, and I can switch, if I can find the right spot here, I can switch the red one off and back on again, and I can switch the yellow one off and back on again, so that you can see that they lie very, very adjacent, and they're very, very slightly further apart at the towers themselves. And one tower lies almost directly behind the other, and then we have a gap which is not quite as large as the previous gap to the lighthouse tower itself here, and then we have the line of sight to the next turbine. So as I said, the lines of sight to the turbines and the lighthouse tower line up absolutely as we would expect. So I mentioned a little piece of land, and just for completeness sake I should talk about that. So I've overlaid the picture onto Google Earth again. So you can see this piece of land which is next to these two turbines and starts to appear quite close to this lowermost turbine here. Now the turbine base, if you remember, is at 333, 334 meters according to Google Earth. And the reason we suddenly start to see the land is that if you look across here and move just some short distance away, you can see that the land height here is now 348 meters. So some 10 to 15 meters higher in elevation, but also it has trees growing on top of it as well, that look as if they are more mature than some of the trees on the lower hill over here. And so what we're seeing with this piece of land here is entirely expected, as you would expect these trees to be some distance higher, and the land gets progressively higher and higher up to 360 meters or so. And so that's why that piece of land comes into view. It's also slightly closer to the camera, and therefore has would be slightly more elevated, if you like, on a spherical Earth. So no problem with the piece of land here, and all the turbines correctly identified. And indeed this further confirms this observation of the land and the trees here being higher, further confirms that we have in fact identified the correct set of turbines. So, as you'll have realised, the problem flat earthers have to explain is, why can't we see the hill on which the turbines are located? It is completely invisible from our view, apparently blocked by the water. How is that possible on a flat Earth? The turbines with the blades, a blade in vertical position, would be just over 100 meters high. The hill is 340 meters high at the highest point. Second problem that some flat earthers have from this particular little observation is that only the tower of the lighthouse is visible, and none of the island of Inchkeith is visible. Inchkeith Island is about half the distance away as the turbines, and if memory serves me correctly, the island, the focal height of the lighthouse is around 60, somewhere between 60 and 70 meters, I think, above the water. Mentioning the water, I will say that this was taken at or very close to high tide, so the conditions did favour me in blocking out more of the land in the distance. But of course, high tide would not explain, as 5 or 6 meter tide would not explain why we have a 300 meter hill hidden if the Earth was flat. Over the years, flat earthers have provided a number of explanations for why objects seem to disappear from the bottom up on a flat Earth. None of these has made even the remotest bit of sense when examined. And I'm not going to waste a lot of time demonstrating how what we're observing here is exactly what would be expected on a spherical Earth, with an atmosphere that causes some light refraction, a small amount, and how it's completely impossible on a flat Earth. I'm going to leave it to the flat earthers to actually provide me with an explanation for this observation. Why is the 340 metre high hill on which these turbines are located completely hidden from our view, as well as part of the turbines themselves? Why is the tower of the Inchkeith lighthouse visible, but none of the island of Inchkeith itself? I'm expecting various bizarre explanations to do with angles of observation and so on. And if one is presented, if somebody does deign to present an argument, then I will deal with that argument in detail. But please make it an argument that and an explanation that bears some resemblance to reality. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with some more videos and some news and some changes to this channel in the very near future.